Objection. The gentlewoman from Wyoming is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. China is trying to control the global AI sector through extensive state-directed investments, aggressive subsidies, and protectionist trade measures. It is making substantial investments to secure its global position through initiatives like Made in China 2025 and the New Generation Artificial Intelligence Development Plan. Mr. Chilson, how might China's government subsidies and protectionist policies affect global competition in AI?
So China's model for AI innovation is very different than the US's. It's largely state-sponsored. It is driven through a structure that is designed to make sure that the Chinese Communist Party has its finger in everything. And it means that the end result is a designed from the top ecosystem. They pour a lot of money into this, and they have talented people, and so they do have surprises occasionally. The DeepSeek AI model that came out, they can get a lot done with that model. Ultimately, however, I think the U.S. model, if we don't, tie one or both hands behind our back, is going to win in this space because we have the talent, we have the investment, and we have the ecosystem that rewards trying new things out and seeing if they work. And so I worry a lot about China. I think modeling and this is why I was a little bit confused about the university question, a top-down investment model that tries to look like China is not the right model for the U.S.
I'm glad to hear that, and I'm also excited to hear about your optimism, because what would be the strategic consequences if China achieved dominance in the global AI space?
Well, there's a lot of different consequences, and we could just look at cultural ones, we could look at strategic national security ones, and I think those are the ones that I think raise the most eyebrows.
This technology. Give me some examples.
Yeah, so this technology is very powerful, both in an offensive and defensive manner for cybersecurity. So both to defend from cybersecurity attacks and to cause them, and so. Being ahead in that race matters a lot. A lot of our infrastructure in the U.S. obviously needs to be strong against those types of attacks, and I think that AI has a huge potential to be a defensive barrier to those types of things, but we need to stay ahead in the race.
Well, I agree with you on that as well. This committee has observed with concern harmful policies also coming from the EU on privacy, antitrust, censorship, and more. Now the Artificial Intelligence Act will impose significant compliance costs on affected companies, particularly American businesses that play a pivotal role within the AI sector. Mr. Coniglio, how should we as members of Congress be concerned about the impact of this framework on our constituent businesses? And are there specific ways in which the EU regulations might disadvantage smaller American AI companies as compared to larger firms?
Thank you very much for the question, Congresswoman. I would say we should be very concerned about the regulatory approach that the European Union is taking, not just with the AI Act. One of the things I would say they did learn from the GDPR is now to do regulation that targets American firms specifically so that they don't burden their smaller firms with regulation. And that's really been the lesson with the DMA, which is absolutely disproportionately having very harmful effects on American businesses, really our tech leaders, and it was intended to do so. So I think that, as I recall, the letter from Chairman Jordan starting to investigate those practices is very important and something we need to continue to do.
So do you have recommendations as to what Congress specifically ought to do in this space?
It's a very complicated area. I would note, with respect to potential legislation, in Korea, there was a proposed bill by Representative Miller, I believe, to talk about potential tools in a trade area that could be used to the extent that regulations are being basically weaponized as de facto protectionist policies against American companies. And I think that might absolutely be the right framework to think about it.
Okay. Mr. Chilson, in your testimony, you cite how competition is robust and global across all layers of the AI stack. How should Congress consider protecting American companies in such an environment, or is such a policy even achievable or worthy of consideration?
So American companies lead the world in this, so I don't know that they need protection from Congress, but what they do need is the ability to continue to innovate, build, get the supplies and the data that they need, and there's a lot in the regulatory space that Congress could work on. I think in particular, we've mentioned it a couple times, but one of the biggest threats is well-intentioned but often very abstract and not well-developed state-level regulation, which could limit a lot of this innovation.
So preemption is important.
I think it's very important.
Thank you, and I yield back.